Miracy.
Hi, I'm Mitchell Levy, Global Credibility Expert, and you are listening to Making It. I've been very successful at allowing people to articulate where they are executing on their purpose and what to do with it afterwards. When I was 9, my parents got divorced. And the question that I asked myself was, what is the role of a father? Because my father would drive in once or twice a month for the weekend and do sort of, hey, let's be dad by taking you to the movies or bowling. That's sort of the first recollection. I don't remember a lot of my life. We were living in New Jersey, and most of the time my mom was a single teacher with 3 kids. We were beneath the poverty line for that time frame. And my mom instilled a really cool philosophy. What she did with all 3 kids is very simple. All you have to do is set your mind to it. You do whatever you want. I do remember being one of the luckiest kids around because we had set dinners. So we had hot dogs on Mondays and sloppy joes on Tuesdays. And the other kids didn't have that. They had to eat other things with vegetables and all this other stuff. I didn't realize that it's all my mom could afford. It didn't matter because it was fun and it didn't feel like anything strange. But the thing that was most interesting was just the distillation of the attitude, hey, set your mind to it. You can do whatever you want. And it felt special. We often hear the expression, you are a representation of the people we hang out with. And I was a CD student in high school. And when I got to college, I bumped into 2 really gorgeous girls. And for some reason, we adopted each other. And what they did for fun on Friday nights was go to the library. So I was at the library Friday nights. And this CD student ended up getting all A's and 2 B's the first semester. Second semester, I still hung out with them. It was all A's and 1 B. And then for the rest of my college career, it was all A's. And their effect, without being direct, but just hanging out with them, has been so profound in terms of who I am. I wasn't really a good student. Once I realized I could be a good student, and I realized how easy it was my first semester, I asked myself, hey, do I want to go to college and work? I was there on scholarships and taking student loans. Because we were below the poverty line, I got half the tuition paid for, the rest I took loans out. When I realized it was so easy, I kind of woke up and said, if I'm going to be here and I'm not going to work and I'm going to do this school thing full time, I went to my guidance counselor and said, what is the hardest course I could take? She shared with me that the industrial engineering school did a partnership with the business school. And there was a Bachelor of Science in Stochastic and Deterministic Models of Operational Research. So if I'm going to summarize that, I was taught how to model people and systems and improve them. And I could only say how lucky or fortuitous I was because everything I've done my entire life post college has incorporated things I learned in my undergrad. And there just aren't many people who could say that. I've started 20-ish businesses in the last 38 years being in Silicon Valley. The thing that got me out of corporate and saying, hey, I'm an entrepreneur was simply during the dot-com days. Most of the technology evolution that happens in the world emanates from Silicon Valley. I've lived in Cupertino in Silicon Valley for 38 years. And if you really are paying attention to networking groups and companies, you get a feeling for the pulse of what's happening. You get to see ahead of time where the world's going. I was working for Sun Microsystems, a company that they did not invent the internet, but they were using the internet commercially. And I understood where the internet was going to transform. In 1997, I'm like, this is too amazing not to start my own business. I was that guy who would go around to companies, typically CEOs and VP of operations, and I would go, there's this new technology coming. We're going to be able to talk directly to our customers. We're going to be able to have our supply chain manufacturers drop ship products directly to customers. Now, here's the crazy thing. I was physically kicked out of the offices of two companies because the internet was just a fad. I was teaching when I first started doing my own thing. I had a friend of mine say to me, Mitchell, listen, if you're going to be on your own, you have to do one of three things. You have to write a book, speak at events, and teach at a school. I ended up doing all three. In my life so far, I've written 65 books. I've published 750 because I really like the publishing thing. But what ended up happening is I was teaching at university and I got too busy. One thing I've learned as an entrepreneur is you never throw away opportunities. So I went to the dean and said, I have to do more or I have to do less. So what that does is it allows the person you're with to envision something different. And the dean said to me, well, you ever think about creating an executive education program? I'm like, oh, never thought about it. I said, let's get time on the calendar. I will come back to you and tell you what I think about it. And so I architected 30 courses I wanted to bring. I said, let's start in fall, 9 months from now. Here are the 30 courses that I'd like to bring. And then I said something that really blew him away. What I said was, and I don't want you to pay me hourly. So pay me nothing. And what I'd like to be paid is just 25% of the door. Now, he's never had anybody be successful at creating a program like that. And he thought I was being really stupid. And so he was really quick to create a contract and sign me up. We sold over 4,400 course seats and took in over $2 million. When the dot bomb hit, I was running two different businesses. I had a CEO networking group that I was making $60,000 a year. And then I had my e-commerce sort of consultancy that was well into six figures. The e-commerce consultancy went to zero. The same thing happened in COVID. My six-figure book publishing business went to almost zero. And the hardest thing for most people to wrap their arms around is understanding that it wasn't them, right? It wasn't me. Dot bomb wasn't me. I couldn't have changed that in any way. It's how I react to that, how I focus on that, how I internalize that and move to the next thing. In both cases, I'm like, man, if I had only one more year, right? I wanted one more year. It was a really good lesson to learn that sometimes things happen to you as an entrepreneur that isn't personal and isn't anything you had control of. Just the external factors changed everything. It is how quickly you change as a result that is important. And first time my business went to zero was really hard until I learned that lesson. I was running these two businesses, one close to seven figures and the other one $60,000 a year. I was about ready to kick out the $60,000 business. And all of a sudden, when the e-commerce business went to zero, that 60,000 looked really good. Who did I serve in terms of the books that I wrote, in terms of the books that I published? I served thought leaders. Okay, what did thought leaders want as they were focusing on their books? Well, they want credibility. Okay, what's the definition of credibility? And the answer was not what I thought it was. I went on a self-prescribed Napoleon Hill journey and I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility. Now, the interesting part, I didn't have to research how to do research or how to do the approach because it was the stuff I learned when I was in undergrad. I did this between 2019 and 2020. What I fine-tuned in the 500 interviews and now post that over 500 others is helping companies and in the thought leadership, helping individuals, but being able to articulate in less than 10 words where they are executing on their purpose. And having that in less than 10 words is incredibly simple. I mean, now you have a compass. And if you have a compass, you make better decisions. And how you show up when you're not in a room, your website and your social media, is a reflection of that compass. All of a sudden, you get a lot more credibility because you're consistently showing up in that phrase. I call it a CPOP, your customer point of possibilities. This is something that started really getting reinforced when I started doing the research and has been a very interesting focal point in my life post that. When I knew how important this concept of a CPOP was, the customer point of possibilities, I thought, well, maybe this is your purpose. But then I realized, no, that's not really it. Maybe this is your mission or vision or values. And it took me a while. It turns out it was about 4 years after I completed the research that I went to an event called the Purpose Summit. And when I heard 3 days of people talking about purpose, I absolutely realized that the CPOP is where one is executing on their purpose. Not the purpose themselves, but it's where one is executing on their purpose. And here's the cool part. If you are good at what you do, love what you do, and smile inside when you do it, I'm going to say that you are in alignment. What that means is you as a human are vibrating at a frequency. And if you can actually continue to vibrate at that frequency, when you're doing the stuff you love and you're like, oh my God, you're just feeling like this is you, that is you representing and vibrating at your frequency. Now, here's the interesting part. If you can express that vibrational frequency in words, less than 10 words, if you could express it as part of your CPOP, now all of a sudden, you know how to jump back into that alignment for you personally. And you know how to share that alignment with other people so that you can actually turn yourself into a magnet. Because if people can see you vibrating in that frequency or feel you vibrating in that frequency, they're going to say, hey, I want that. I want that as a referral partner or a prospect. That's where I've evolved to now. And so that's my task at the moment, is to get more people to see that. Making it is one of those things that will change based on who you are. If you're working for somebody else, making it is that you wake up one day and you're like, hey, the people around me like me, I'm getting promotions, I'm doing the right thing. As an entrepreneur, making it is that when you consider yourself successful, the real question is, by whose rules? What game are you playing? I truly believe that making it is when you figure out the game that you're playing. We have one life to live. Are you living it to the fullness of who you are? Are you living it in such a way where you don't have regrets because you're making the best decisions you can each step along the way? One of the best things you could do to be a credible human is to be of service to others. And this is ultimately, to be an entrepreneur, you are of service to others. You're making it. Making it could be, if you're someone like Gandhi or Mother Teresa, you make enough money or no money, but you have food and shelter taken care of and you're changing the life of others. Making it could be that you have more than enough money to cover the basic needs of yourself and your kids and you're fine. Making it is not you have $1 billion and you're going for the second billion, because that's playing by somebody else's rules. So making it is being a servant leader to the audience and knowing when is enough. All I want to do is make sure that I can be of service to others, delivering on being a servant leader, and it's bringing joy. I'm Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, and you've been listening to Making It. For more resources, check me out at mitchelllevy.com, MITCHELLLEVY. You could take a look at the programs we're currently running, things that we're doing, and if you want to book time on my calendar, you can do it right there at mitchelllevy.com. And you'll find the link in the show notes.